Hello and welcome to the Hindu's continuing coverage of the Union Budget 2026-27 tabled in Parliament by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman for the record ninth time. If I can begin by saying that the Union Budget marks a clear return to supply side policy framework with the center leaning heavily on investment, cost competitiveness, and production incentives rather than fresh stimulus on the consumption side, which after last year's sizable direct tax reliefs and successive rounds of GST rate rationalization, as we would know, it's now down to a framework of two main buckets. The government entered this budget with a rather limited headroom on the revenue side. Against this backdrop, the emphasis has largely been on sustaining growth momentum through a continued infrastructure push, lowering input taxes for exporters, and strengthening domestic manufacturing. A broad set of customs duties reductions, particularly on intermediate goods and raw materials, have been done, which signals an attempt to cushion export oriented sectors facing a hostile global trade environment. More importantly, the 16th Finance Commission's recommendations were tabled in Parliament and they've been accepted by the government, and the Finance Commission's recommendation has been to maintain status quo on the devolution, which is 41% to the states, and the states have already sort of begun reacting to this as well. Markets, however, have also reacted nervously on budget day, with equities selling off sharply as investors weigh the absence of fresh demand side stimulus. Now, I have with me my colleagues joining from across the country to analyze the budget and to sort of explain certain nuances from the beats that they cover. Without further ado, I will first begin with my colleague and Ravi Kumar, who joins me from Hyderabad. He's been covering the pharma sector for long. And the finance minister actually began her speech first by laying out seven strategic manufacturing sectors and laid particular emphasis on the pharma sector. As many of our viewers might know, it's one of the sectors that has not been affected by the trade headwinds because the US has kept generic pharmaceuticals outside of its tariff structure. And also, India is a major exporter of generics. So the finance minister has allocated about 10,000 crore rupees for the development of the sector. Ravi, how do you see this, and in the larger global context, why this sector? Because this is the sector which has actually been doing well. Ravi, are you there? I think there might be some technical issues. Maybe we can go to Jacob Koshi, my colleague uh, from Delhi, who covers science and renewables. Jacob, there was also this emphasis on carbon capture, utilization, and storage. The finance minister particularly mentioning about a 20,000 crore allocation over several years, I believe. Maybe if you can
Yes,
talk about that in the backdrop of what had happened
yes.
last year, because there appeared to be more of a push on renewables last year, but has that just been pivoted to this, or do you see this in a sort of a different frame? Also, there's also some announcements on nuclear, etc.
So, yes, Kunal, there is even the economic survey this year laid a kind of emphasis on on India not exclusively focusing on medium-term carbon cuts in the mean term, and rather integrating, all of this, as part of its larger energy strategy. So, in that sense, I do see that this mention of CCU, carbon capture, utilization, and storage, as a policy move, as in the same way as we had in the last budget. The finance minister spoke about developing small modular reactors as well as new nuclear reactors as part of a 20,000 crore mission. Though I have
Right.
checked up, but I still do not see which ministry specifically has been allotted this 20,000 crore or even an initial, token sum yet. Last December, there was a meeting that was coordinated by the principal scientific advisor, and this was This included participation from the Science Ministry, Ministry of Science and Technology, and they had discussed a roadmap regarding CCUS. But I still haven't
Mhm.
seen specific allocations, even in the Science Ministry budget, or chemicals, fertilizers, or anything. So maybe this is something that has just been announced as a kind of signal on the government's intent to actually, use or test new technology regarding carbon capture, etc. So, but on the other hand, there also has been no headway, particularly regarding the nuclear mission, because the allocations that were there last year seem it's pretty much in line with what was allocated last year. So I think it is more of a
Right.
signal push, and only in the years ahead we will start to see the first signs of allocation, because these are very capital intensive kind of projects, and going by previous years, it does take some time for these to actually get on the ground.
Right, right. Good point. So thank you so much, Jacob, for that. And I suppose sectoral and ministry allocations would take more time for us to get a fairly accurate hold on. But let me just
Yeah.
bring in Ashokamitran, my colleague, who joins us from Bombay, from Mumbai, and he's been tracking the market's reactions to the budget. Uh, I believe, Ashoka, there's been a crash in the markets, and markets have reacted quite negatively. I suppose one of the important reasons might be the raise in the securities and transaction tax and other sort of futures and options derivative trading taxes. Yeah.
So hi, thanks for having me. And yes, markets have crashed. It was fine. It opened at minus 0.2% or something in the morning at 9, and it was fine for the better part of the speech. But until 12:15 or 12:20, when the finance minister announced that derivative uh, trades are going to get costlier because securities transaction tax on them has been increased both on buy and sell for options and for futures also,
Yes.
around 75 basis point increase. So this is clearly uh, a way to stop speculation at the retail trades. So what happened in the last couple of years, the last post the COVID and the increase in demat account and your grow Zerodha of the world's becoming bigger because of the apps. It's become more accessible. And on top of
Right.
that, uh, if you give a context of flat wage growth in the last 10 years, then you have a perfect storm for a speculative market. Now, while in my reporting we figured out that it is quite not possible that the bunch of retail traders even know what that there is a securities transaction tax for the retail trades they are actually booking. And sometime last year, SEBI came out with a paper saying that
Right.
9 out of 10 people who are trading are losing money, and the in all aggregate loss of trading in derivatives is 1 lakh crore. Not, I think, not including securities transaction tax also. So what happens is now
Right.
you will have to have pay up more for your profits that you get from securities trades. Whether this intent will work the way it is, whether this plumbing will actually turn out into the right kind of an outcome is something we don't know, because what the experts also say that the opposite effect, the way things have worked with excise duties for cigarettes and alcohol, where you
Yes.
just put some taxation on a good that people have become addicted to, and then the government becomes addicted to that. So that kind of an intention comes, then you are not going to stop STT. This is one kind of a view. The other kind is no, it's good
Right.
because whatever it is in your interior districts of India where there's no pin code in India without a demat account, which means we even
Right.
have two
Yes.
or three demat accounts in Andaman and Nicobar. So
Yes.
people there do not know, derivative trades are a very risky trade and most people lose there. And the government is clearly
Yeah.
aware of this. So which is why they have done this.
Right.
But the downside, if we really have to speak about this, is brokerage companies which have do a lot of investments. They use derivatives to hedge the losses. So there will
Right.
be, because brokerage companies are not very happy with this because of that, and that is showing up in the markets. So
That's
this
showing
is
up in
one.
the market.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the counter, all is not bad for the markets, because what some experts are also saying, this is an overreaction, because
Right.
minority stakeholders capital buybacks, where last year they were taxed at about 39%, and you're up to 39% of your applicable limit. But now, since
Right.
you've got capital gains, you've got buybacks
Right.
income into capital gains. Now, holding it
Right.
more than a year is going to just be 12.5%. In the last year, there was no buyback transaction at all. The biggest and the most prominent one was the Infosys one. There was no
Right.
buyback
Yes.
transaction at all. So the whole pipeline
So,
dried up. So what
right.
experts are also telling me is
They've
that
now.
this year,
No, I
because
was just. Yeah.
shareholders can get 12 point, just pay 12.5% as a capital gains. Now it's treated like a mutual fund or any other market investment you make, which is the right way to do things, because now it's rationalized, now it's simplified. So
Right.
now we're expecting buyback transactions to actually pick up this year because of this.
Because of this. Excellent. So let me. I think there's some disturbance from you, from your side, Ashoka. Maybe if you can look into fixing that. But for the paucity of time, let me move on to Tiki Raji, who joins me from Trivandrum. Tiki, how this you're in a state which is to go to polls this year, and also ruled by an opposition party. Last year, Kerala and Tamil Nadu were vocal about how they felt shortchanged. This year, there's already been a lot of talk about how the 16th Finance Commission ought to have attempted to have increased the devolution from its 41%. The states have been demanding that it be raised to 50%, but the 16th Finance Commission has sort of recommended status quo as of now. How has the state government reacted, and also how do you view some of the announcements that have been made? Some of them seem to touch upon Kerala, where, for instance, the rare earth metal corridor, which was announced. Also, some of the agriculture high value product announcements may affect Kerala. There's no direct reference to Kerala aside from that one instance, but I just wondered, I sort of wanted to get a sense of how the state government is viewing and how people are reacting in the state as well.
The Kerala Finance Minister, Mr. Balagopal, has already gone on record saying that the budget is very disappointing for the state as well as the Indian economy in general. So Kerala has found two mentions in the speech actually. Apart from the dedicated rare earth corridor, the other one is the Turtle Trails project. So the rare earth corridor scheme, Kerala
That's right.
had proposed in its wish list, and also in the state budget, which was presented on January 29. That this project had featured very prominently in both these documents. So, but Finance Minister Mr. Balagopal has already stated that what Kerala requires from this project is industries in Kerala, which can generate employment and investment, not the minerals are
Right.
mined and carted off to outside the state. So that is one. How this project is going to be implemented is going to be very important, especially when you consider the environmental aspects of mining. Mining has already been a controversial issue in Kerala, and the coastal areas have been facing coastal erosion for a long time now. So, how this project is going to be implemented is very important for Kerala. Otherwise, all the major demands have been ignored. Kerala had asked for a 21,000 crore special fiscal correction package. In the previous two budgets, also Kerala had demanded the same thing, but all three times this demand has been ignored. Also, Kerala's demand for an AIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, that has been pending for a long time. So that also has not found any mention in the budget. Another demand was a lot of projects linked to the Vizhinjam seaport, the new port at Vizhinjam. So that also has not found mention, and the high-speed rail corridor. Although 7 high-speed rail corridor projects have been announced in the budget, Kerala has not found any mention in that respect also. So, but on the other hand, the 16th Finance Commission, although it has retained the devolution to 41%, Kerala's share has been increased from 1.92% to 2.38%. The divisible tax pool from the, so that is a positive for Kerala.
Right.
But how the finer details have to be worked out. So that is there. So Kerala, on the other hand, Kerala is also likely to benefit from a lot of general announcements in the budget, like the Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative for boosting traditional industries like khadi and handloom, the coastal cargo promotion scheme.
Yes.
Kerala has 2 major ports and a string of minor ports along the coast. So how that project will benefit Kerala remains to be seen. In the tourism sector also, seaplane VGF scheme.
Right.
So the seaplane project, Kerala has been pursuing this project for some time now, although it has not really taken off. In the farm sector, the coconut promotion scheme,
right,
and the cashew, the dedicated program plan for cashew. Those 2 schemes, along with the sandalwood
yes,
to promote focused cultivation. There's a scheme for that. So these are areas where Kerala can benefit, but how the details are being worked or how these projects are going to be implemented will be important. And the other thing is, other scheme pertains to the blue economy. The plans to strengthen the fisheries value chain, and also fishing beyond the territorial waters, how that will benefit states like Kerala, coastal states like Kerala. That also remains to be seen. But in general, there's disappointment with the budget, especially with Kerala going for the assembly elections in a few months' time. Actually, everybody was expecting something. So the BJP state president Rajiv Chandrasekhar has already gone on record saying that the
thank
Kerala
you so
government
much,
has not been
Tiki.
performing.
Yeah, right. And I think there has also been some mention of mention of disappointment by the Tamil Nadu government here. Kanimuri, the DMK party MP has also reacted, being critical of the budget as well. If I can maybe have my colleague Ravi Kumar from Hyderabad, I believe his line is better and he can join us. Ravi, as I was asking you, the main capex push by the government appears to begin with pharma, or at least in the speech by the finance minister. So I wondered if you could sort of shed light on, why it is so particularly for a sector which has been doing well. Are you there, Ravi? Can you hear me?
Audible?
You are mute. Yes, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was mentioning that the capex push mainly seems to have, sort of, at least in the speech, begun with the announcements for the pharma sector. It's already a sector which has not been affected as badly as many others in post the Trump tariffs. So what do you see as the reason behind this push, and also how have industry associations reacted to this news?
Yeah, thanks for Kunal for the opportunity. Yes, rightly you mentioned this biopharma initiative figured pretty much at the top of the budget announcement. Basically, I'll just mention what the finance minister said. She said the government is planning to introduce something called Biopharma Shakti, which is strategy for healthcare advancement through knowledge, technology, and innovation, with an outlay of about 10,000 crores over the next 5 years. This is pretty much important from a perspective of the shift that the Indian pharma industry wants from its typically generic volume-based approach to going up the value chain in terms of innovation and coming up with some nice products. And the
Right.
announcement also talks, the budget announcement, I mean, also talks about the specific areas where this scheme will be of interest or operational, including cancer, autoimmune disorders. And
Right.
from an overall perspective, yes, you asked me how the industry has reacted. One of the first reactions that we have got is from Dr. Reddy's Laboratories chairman, Mr. Satish Reddy. In fact, he has said this Biopharma Shakti program will be a key enabler for India's journey from volume to value leadership. Because this is something that we have been talking about for quite some time. But of course, this is not the first time that we are focusing on this, because we have had in the past initiatives like BIRAC and all, but then this is taking it to the next level. I think it won't be out
Right.
of place to also mention here that 10,000 crores over 5 years is pretty much a small amount considering the capital intensive nature of this work. So off record, there are also industry people who are telling me that this will be a very small,
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
this will be a pretty much a very small amount, but a good beginning rate. Kunal.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. So, yeah, so some optimism, but given that it's generally being viewed as a sort of a lackluster budget, is sort of what sort of a mid-term lackluster budget. It appears to be on a slightly positive note there. I think. Thank you so much, Ravi. I think maybe the other sector which has also been given some sort of a push is the SME sector, the small businesses, focused on leather, footwear, textiles, and apparels. And a lot of which are actually concentrated in states like Tamil Nadu, which are also going to polls. So I wanted to discuss that with my colleague Preeta, Saundarya Preeta, who joins us from Coimbatore. Preeta, who I believe is pulled over her car and waiting for us. So I think I'll straight away go to her to sort of gather her inputs. Preeta, if you're there, and fill us in with what the industry reactions have been to the I say, okay, I'm sorry, Preeta is not in, I believe. Maybe I can go to let me go to Shobana, who's joining us from Delhi. Shobana, you've covered particularly Manrega and several of the employment based schemes. I wondered if I can ask you about what you make of the allocations for the new Viksit Bharat Gramin, Ramji bill,
Yes.
and what reactions have been to that.
So the union budget has allocated 95,692 crores for the VBG Ramji bill. This is and apart from this, they have also allocated some 30,000 crores for Manrega, because the new act has not commenced yet. From the date of its
Right.
notification, the state governments will get 6 months to come up with their own scheme. In the interim period, Manrega will continue as usual. Now, I cross-check with the ministry also. There are, if we go by, I mean, as per the ministry's claim, as per what the act says, that any rural household who volunteer to do unskilled manual work can register and avail employment under the new scheme, which therefore means that all the workers who worked under Manrega will also be eligible under this scheme. And currently we have 8.65 crore active job card holders. Now, by active means that they have used Manrega, have sort of applied for Manrega work, and they have worked in the last financial year. Now, and so if all now, the one big thing that the government says, how VBG Ramji is an improvement over Manrega, is that in Manrega, the statutory guarantee is only of 100 days, and in VBG Ramji, they have increased it by 25 days, so it's 125 days. So if we were to go by what the government themselves have set a target for themselves, which is 125 days, and if the average cost per person per day
125 days, yeah.
is 100 is 355 rupees, then by that calculation the total expenditure to meet the 125-day target should be 3,83,844 crore. And at 60/40 cost ratio, the government of India's share would amount to approximately 2.3 lakh crores. Instead of that, the current allocation falls way short with just
Right.
95,692 crores. So obviously there are
Right.
questions as to how the government plans to meet its own targets that it set for itself. So that is one
Yeah,
concern.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
and
ahead.
the minister just had a press conference where he said there was a 21% hike in the rural development budget. However, the budgetary documents do not really reflect, and he has not explained as to where this 21% hike is, because in the net budgetary hike of the rural development department from the last FY to this year's allocation is roughly 3%, a little over 3%. So we are still trying to decode
Right.
what
Right.
he meant by 21%.
Yeah, yeah, and also it's interesting because there's also a claim of a considerably higher capex push. Evidently, if you go by the numbers that have been put out, it's over 12.2 lakh crores. But just where this government is getting that money from, particularly because it's pretty revenue constrained, would be interesting to see that as well. Shobna, thank you so much for joining, and giving your inputs on this. Let me try and get Preeta back on the call if she is able to join. Preeta, I was asking as to what you make of the announcements that have been made for the small businesses and at the MSME sector, mainly textiles, leather, and footwear. And there have been a lot of customs duties and quality control order rationalizations that have also been done, that have taken place in the past year, as the Trump tariffs have sort of taken effect. So overall, what has been your impression and your analysis, and what are you hearing from the ground?
Hi, Kunal. The MSME sector, specifically the labor-intensive textile, garment, or footwear, these sectors were heavily impacted by for the last 3 years or so by the wars, largely the external factors, because they are also very export-intensive sectors. And
Yes.
the budget has at least in the budget speech there was focus on these two sectors, the textiles and the SMEs. However, two things: Indian textile sector is predominantly cotton based, and the government announced a cotton mission last year, 5,000 odd crores, but it is yet to be implemented. I think it's just taking off now. And this year they have said that there will be a national fiber scheme which will focus on the man-made fibers, the synthetic fibers.
Right.
And we need to wait and see what they will try to do in this segment, because the other two fibers that we are looking at is polyester and rayon. We need to see what will happen there. And one thing the ministry has said, though it does not
Yeah.
reflect in the document as for other sectors, there's about 25% hike in budgetary allocation for textiles, which means they are getting about 1,500 crores more specifically for the schemes announced in the budget. And the industry is looking forward for technology upgradation, because there is a mention about that. And the earlier technology upgradation fund is not implemented now. So they are looking for a revamped scheme there. That could help the industry. However, one major expectation which is not there in the budget is removal of 10% import duty on cotton. So that's a huge disappointment for the industry, because we have to be raw material wise competitive in the international market. And for the SMEs, the CGT credit guarantee scheme is already there. There's a higher allocation for that scheme, which means it indicates the scheme will continue. And now they have said that all CPSEs will have to TREDS is mandatory for all of them. So the SMEs are hoping that that will help them, in payments. However, I think even the survey says that Indian SMEs are largely in the micro sector, and there is no specific announcement or support scheme for the micro sector, especially those in the
Yes.
manufacturing area, and they are facing copper and aluminium prices are like they are
Quite
it's
high.
just going
Yes.
up. Yeah. So there's
And copper
nothing on
prices in
that.
particular have been an issue. Yeah.
Right. You take all our, pump sets or lot of industries that use copper, and these are
Right.
there's no relief for these industries. So I think it's there are huge expectations and something for everyone to take home. That's all. It's nothing major, and I don't think that's going to give any relief.
Right. Nothing substantive. It's piecemeal for
Yeah.
almost every sector, but nothing quite substantive.
Right.
Thank you so much, Preeta, for making time. Let me go to Bindu. Bindu, who joins us from Delhi, who covers health. Bindu, some interesting announcements on the health side. There's an announcement that Nimhan's 2 would be set up in North India. The finance minister particularly mentioning how there isn't a sort of a quality mental health institution in the northern parts of India. There's also some mention of a considerable size of caregivers skill upgradation and job employment guarantee. There also appears to be some mention of Ayurvedic medical institutions. How do you view all of this? Of course, we are well past COVID, which really saw the sort of historic highs in the health sector allocation. But do you see this as a sort of again, as a lot of what others have been mentioning, do you see this again as a piecemeal sort of allocations, or are they substantive? And what are you also hearing from the ground?
So the first response from the ground says that they're happy with the allocation where geriatric care is offered now to 14.9 crore people, which is the population that we have of the elderly who are over 60. There is strengthening of capacity building for allied health services. There is the biggest positive impact has been a
Yeah.
reduction of cost for cancer drugs and rare disease drugs. That is the most immediate impact that it will have. However, health sector has remained on the margins of the union budget. So there hasn't been any major allocations. Though again, Ayush is welcome. Mental health programs that are being brought in, that is welcomed. Strengthening of our drug testing capacity has been welcomed. Providing employment in form of allied health services, that has been welcomed. Another major promise that the union finance minister has given is that there will be a trauma center for every district, which is 800 plus districts across the country. So that's a welcome move. However, health budget doesn't take into account the inflation that has been brought in and the sheer cost of hospitalization. This is apart from the Ayushman Bharat scheme or the government-run health insurance scheme.
Yes.
So that is a sector that has remained completely untouched. So out-of-pocket expenditure doesn't look like it is going to go down anytime soon. So that's a sector that we need to worry about. Of course, there is a lot of emphasis on innovation, research, and manufacture, which my colleague has already touched upon and we've discussed.
Yeah, great, Bindu. Yeah, that's a very important point, particularly on the cancer drugs. I would think that would be quite welcome as a very specific focus on, on sort of, I suppose, tax holidays, etc. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Bindu, for that input. And if I can, if I can go to Shiv, who's been waiting patiently from Calcutta. Shiv, again, not very specific mention of allocations for the state, but there appears to be that high-speed rail corridor, which I think is supposed to touch somewhere at Siliguri. If I, remember the mention from the finance minister's speech. I suppose you would have probably had some time to go over the document as well. How is the state government there reacting to the budget? I already know, we just had Tiki Rajvi on our on the live a little earlier, where he mentioned the finance minister there has already been critical, and so has the Tamil Nadu government here. So I just wanted to get your input as well.
So the West Bengal government, the chief minister has already reacted to the budget, and she's been very critical, calling it a directionless and visionless budget. What is interesting this year, because this is the usual criticism which comes from the opposition, particularly from Trinamool Congress. But what is interesting this year is West Bengal is going to polls, and the budget document doesn't mention West Bengal in any way. So there just I could find only three references. One is this high-speed rail corridor connecting Varanasi and Siliguri, which you were mentioning. And then there is this dedicated freight corridor connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. And the chief minister
That's right.
said that this Dankuni thing has been pending for quite long. When she was the rail minister in 2009, she had announced a dedicated freight corridor connecting Dankuni in West Bengal to Amritsar in Punjab. So that, and the third reference is to this Purvodaya. We all, where whenever senior BJP leaders come, Prime Minister, Home Minister, they refer to the development of East. So Purvodaya, it proposes an East Coast Industrial Corridor with well-connected node at Durgapur, creation of 5 tourism destinations. So overall, like the previous, if we compare this budget again to the budget last year, and when there was elections in Bihar, we can see the difference that and not only the chief minister, even the Trinamool Congress chairperson, the Trinamool Congress General Secretary Abhishek Banerjee said that in 85 minutes of the finance minister's speech there was no mention of West Bengal. So this will be very hard for the BJP, which is the principal opposition party here, to defend as to why West Bengal was left out in this budget when elections are so close, so around the corner. So this is
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Shiv. Thank you so much for joining. Let me go to Jagriti, who covers heavy industries, civil aviation, and infrastructure as well from Delhi. Jagriti, the main thrust of the budget has been infrastructure and manufacturing. What are you hearing from the ground? How are sectors there reacting? And fill us in.
Okay, just to give you an overview of what we've heard on aviation, the clear focus has been on manufacturing, where the finance minister announced that there would be a special incentive for indigenous manufacturing of seaplanes. No further details were provided on what sort of incentive would be offered. But on the theme of seaplanes, the minister also said that a subsidy would also be offered for seaplane flights. Now, all this has strategic significance if we are able to develop seaplane routes in areas like Lakshadweep as well as Andaman and Nicobar. Seaplanes were promoted under Udan scheme, which was launched in 2016, but have been a bit of a non-starter. A revised Udan scheme is awaiting a cabinet approval, so we will get to know more details in the days to come. But on the manufacturing,
I think we've lost Jagriti's line there. Maybe we can come back to her. Let me go to Kalyan here in Chennai, my colleague who has been tracking shipping for us for some time, and has written quite insightful pieces on what India's maritime strategy has been, particularly now in the sort of the as oil trade has been weaponized. Kalyan, fill us in on what you make of the announcement of the 10,000 crores towards container manufacturing and the other sort of waterways, etc. announcements.
Yes, so we've been writing that the government seems to have realized that shipping is a strategic sector instead of just being make it open to free trade principles and so on. And that happened during COVID. It was a learning period for us because we had to pay much higher freight and shipping was just not available. Freight rates had gone through the roof in the West and US. So all the shipping companies lined up to feed them and also. What the government has been doing is to, over the last 2 years, they have made very big ticket announcements for major ocean going shipping to improve our tonnage, the number of ships that are registered in India, and promote shipbuilding, ship owning, ship breaking, and so on. That has been there's been very big announcements last year, for instance, some 70,000 crores exclusively for ocean going ship boosting. The government is pumping in money into the public sector, Shipping Corporation of India, and is made all kinds of plans to buy shipping. But this particular budget has been nothing big ticket, as you've been saying, lackluster even in shipping as well. But some of the measures that they have discussed, a lot of small things, but go more towards coastal shipping and inland shipping. Inland shipping hasn't taken off in India, especially in cargo carrying. Despite huge talk, noise, big high publicity, it hasn't really happened. So what they've done is they've removed these shipping companies were taxed as per as per their income. So what they've done is to replace that with a tonnage tax scheme, which is a presumptive scheme. So if a shipping company has a certain amount of tonnage, they'll be charged a certain amount of money. There'll be a presumptive income on which some 5% will be charged. Right. That's a big relief. Tonnage tax is really the gold standard in other countries. So India is also following that. There have been some duty exemption and so on, an announcement of a dedicated freight corridor from the east to west, and some major subsidy scheme for inland waterways. For instance, they've announced that starting with the Brahmani Mahanadi, the National Waterway 5, feeding to Paradip and Dhamra. So that you have minerals, you have factories, and you have a port. So, but there's no cargo going there right now. So they've set up that as a target to do this, starting with this Mahanadi, the NW National Waterway 5. So they hope to do 5 big waterways, develop that shipping. But it's just an announcement. We're waiting to see what else they're going to do to pan out. You have to dredge these rivers to make them ready for shipping all through the year and so on. So these are broadly what's being contained. And container shipping, yes, you brought that up. We make really no containers, surprisingly, despite all our efforts to grow container shipping, millions of TEVs. That's our plan. We want to double the total export, and we've come up with all these transshipment hub port projects. Virinjam is one. We planned one in Andaman, but we make no containers. I mean, a few thousands. One of this was that we did not have steel to make that specialized steel. There were no standards in India. Like there are no BIS standards to say, okay, for shipping containers, you need to have these grade steel, these composition. So the BIS standards have come in place, but it's still not. It's much more expensive to make the containers in India, primarily because of we have to import the steel. Now that may reduce the cost, but that may not bridge the gap. Some private companies have come. There was one company that came up near Chennai, Sriram, and they closed down. It's not viable. So they have announced this scheme. Right. We don't know what it's going to take. Maybe it's capex, land acquisition, or where this money is going to go, or a PLI scheme. Maybe a combination of all these. But it will fill a very felt need in the container industry that we have no containers to take recourse if some disruption were to happen. Regarding import of containers.
Right. Interesting. And as you said, often I think us journalists, we tend to be so event based that we forget to focus on the longevity of these announcements, and we sort of don't go revisit them sometimes to look at what these announcements have panned out to be. And maybe with you we can expect an update on this soon. Thank you so much, Kalyan. Thank you. I think let me quickly just go back to Jagrati, whose line was sort of a little patchy. Jagrati, if you can hear me now, and you were sort of mentioning just about giving us an overview of what the civil aviation announcements were. So go ahead.
Yes. So Kunal, I mentioned that indigenous manufacturing of aircraft has received considerable focus in the budget, with the finance minister talking about a special scheme for indigenous manufacturing of seaplanes. She hasn't specified what special incentive would be offered. But on the theme of seaplanes itself, she says that a subsidy for flights would also be offered. I had mentioned that under the Udan scheme that was announced in 2018 or so, that aims to connect smaller parts of the country. Seaplane was a part of that scheme, but it has remained a non-starter. But a revised version of the Udan scheme is currently awaiting cabinet nod. So hopefully we'll get some more details of what is planned for seaplanes and seaplane flights. But this has a strategic importance if routes to Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep are developed under Udan scheme. There's also, as far as impetus for domestic manufacturing of aircraft is concerned, there's exemption of basic customs duty that has been offered for training aircraft as well as other civilian aircraft. The industry has welcomed this. They had petitioned the government for a waiver of BCD. This stood at 5%, which will now be revised to 0. And another related announcement is allowing special economic zones to sell domestically. This has also been welcomed by aerospace and defense manufacturers. The finance minister said that they would be able to sell domestically at concessional rates of duty as a special one-time measure in order to help them deal with the global trade disruptions. We have seen, as far as aircraft manufacturing is concerned, we are at a very nascent, we do manufacture parts, but not aircraft as a whole. And the Prime Minister's ambition has been, he announced in 2022 that the country should move towards and aim for a domestically manufactured passenger aircraft. And in that context, we have seen a slew of developments, nothing concrete yet, but there's a gradual movement in that direction.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Jagrati. I think if Rahul is on the line, Rahul Karmakar, who joins us from Assam. Rahul, one of the announcements that we saw is this sort of, Buddhist circuit tourism announcement, and a few other Purvedya outlook, which has often been stated in the past as well. How do you view it? How has it been received? And Assam is also a state which is going to the polls. So fill us in.
Yes. See, by and large, the northeastern states don't criticize the budget because they are all central fund dependent, barring Assam.
Right.
And the Assam chief minister has, as usual, he has welcomed the budget. And by the way, today is his birthday. So
I see.
And then Arunachal, Sikkim, Assam, and Tripura have had a lot of Buddhist sites.
Happy birthday to the chief minister. Yeah.
They have a lot of Buddhist sites, particularly Arunachal, Sikkim, Assam, and Tripura. So these are pretty well maintained. But Manipur is I believe, is the weakest because there are certain traces of Buddhism, not very well documented, but these were mostly because of the Meitei connection with the Burmese at one point of time. There are certain mention of, there's the Subika. It's an ancient Manipuri astrology book. It contains some elements of Buddhism and then certain artifacts. But then I believe that it will have to be in Manipur. This will have to be developed a lot, and it all depends. So apart from that, there is some buzz about the city economic region, and people are not sure what it will be, whether it will be like the smart city project.
Yeah.
The smart city projects have not translate into very smart cities in the northeast. Apart from a part of Guwahati, maybe the riverfront has been developed, and Shillong and Itanagar and all these other places have not been any smarter. So there are certain hope, and at the same time, there's some smart specific projects.
All right, I think we lost Rahul's connection there as well. It's been an hour of some glitches here for us, but I hope we were able to capture as much as we could, in the short hour of the Union Budget 2026-27 that was tabled in Parliament. There'll be more on this on our YouTube live and of course online, and indeed a comprehensive coverage that you would be able to read in the next day's paper as well. So thank you so much for joining us on this continuing coverage of the Union Budget 26-27. I'm Kunal Shankar, the Hindu's Deputy Business Editor. Thanks and bye for now.